Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I am your host, Kyle Devitt. Alongside me, he made a wardrobe change just for this podcast, Jack Piatelli. Jack, what's going on, man?
Thanks for giving away my secret. Come on.
I mean, listen, we're ready to sit down, and he goes, "Oh no, I gotta do a wardrobe change. We're on YouTube now. I gotta change it up." So when put all his Cornell gear on, which is indicative of our guest.
Yes, very excited to have one of the greats of all time, Rob Pannell. Rob, thanks so much for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's. I think we both have different relationships with Rob. Obviously, he calls you Mr. Piatelli, right?
Yeah, very respectful young man. Was very impressed. He said hello to me the other day at the Harvard game, and I'm looking around. I'm like, Mr. Piatelli, Mr. Piatelli. I go, oh, that must be me, because I'm not used to being called Mr. Piatelli, but I am Mr. Piatelli to Rob Pannell.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. The Cornell alums are no joke, man. They're very united. I mean, I've talked about this on the podcast before. When they, made the NCAA championship last year, you took me to the Cornell tailgate, and I'm like, this guy went to Cornell. This guy went to Cornell. This guy went. It's like everybody's happy. Everybody's together. It was a great time. It's
a great alumni association, and Rob can talk a little bit. Obviously, he knows more about it than I do, but just being associated through my boys, you can't say anything more with the alumni. I mean, Rob comes back and goes to games. So many players come back and go to games, go to tailgates. But talk a little bit about your experience at Cornell and what it means for you to play at Cornell and the Alumni Association, now being an alumni yourself.
Of course. First, I'll say, though, I think when Kyle went to the Cornell tailgate, I read something afterwards that he put out about how great the Cornell tailgate was. And that may have been one of the biggest wins in Cornell lacrosse history to have Kyle give respect to the Cornell tailgate. But I think that says it right there is, how close the Cornell alumni is. And from the time that I stepped on campus till now, some of the alumni I'm close with, aside from, my teammates, are guys that played in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And, from the time they come up to alumni weekend, which is usually that first weekend in the fall where you get to meet some of these alumni that you hear about in your first few weeks and in your recruiting process and whatnot, that then to have them come on campus and to meet you for the first time, to just be so happy and excited to meet you and be there and be part of the Cornell family. It's special. And I know I'm biased, and Mr. Piatelli, certainly you are as well, with regards to how great Cornell is, knowing your sons and the experience that they've had. But it really is that way. And from the time you step on campus through when you're playing till after college, when you're trying to get a job, the alumni are there for you, and they want to help in every way that they can. And they're showing up to games, and they're also there for your life after lacrosse to help you in any way possible. And it's really a unique family and a culture that we've created at Cornell. And we like to think that maybe some other programs have tried to emulate it at this point.
And what I love, not when that weekend you come back, alumni weekend, you get to meet the incoming freshman class as well. And the team gets to meet all the alumni. It's a great event, having, participated a number of times. But what I love about the Cornell alumni is whether you were the 50th guy on the bench or, a great player, legends like yourself, it doesn't matter. You're all part of the same team. And that's the way it is when you're on the team, and it is all the way through, your entire life. You're a big, happy, supportive family.
Yeah, that's so true. And they're so supportive of everybody. And I think the understanding of how important each person's role is on the team, from the guy who's on the field, taking faceoffs, scoring goals, making saves, to the guy that plays the opposing attackman and scout team, and the great thing about that is that those alumni support all those guys. And I think the other thing that's truly unique is the guys that are on the team embrace whatever role that they are given and run with it and play it to the best of their ability. And there's no one guy more important than the next.
One of the things that I think is interesting with Cornell being in Division I and having one of the youngest coaches in all of Division I, Connor Busick, in one of his first couple seasons, takes the team all the way to the NCAA title. And I don't know how that happens with someone that has been, he hadn't been coaching. It's not like he's a 10-year vet or anything like that, right? Like he was able to rally and bring the support of such a strong community forward and build that team and kind of help will that team to the championship game.
Connor is an amazing coach. I think when you look at his time at Cornell, he was an amazing player as well. And as an older guy on the team, when he came in, he was one of those guys that got it right off the bat and from the start, from the first weight room session, first practice. He was all in on Cornell lacrosse and was going to work as hard as he needed to help the team accomplish our goals of winning a championship. So, in my opinion, because of what Jack talks about with how special the Cornell family is, when there's a Cornell coach coaching the team who had lived through playing there and understands what it's like to be part of the team and the importance of the alumni and the legacy, and Amy McEnany and George Boyardi and Paul Schmoller and all those guys who have come before the current team. I mean, Connor and Jordan are the perfect guys to do that. And the two of them, I think, is what really makes it special. Connor certainly, has that incredible presence in front of a team. Even a lot of us even now look at him and say, can't believe he's 28, 29 years old. When he speaks to us in front of alumni functions in New York City. And then you have Jordan, who also lived it and breathed it and was part of it for multiple years as a player. And then as a coach, the two of them is certainly ideal, I think, for Cornell, as those are two guys that got it when they were on the team. And I couldn't think of two better young men to be leading Cornell right now. Yeah.
And, as someone that has interviewed Connor when he was a player in the pros, and then last year at the presser, I couldn't believe it was the same person. So it's speaking to that kind of level of maturity and ability to rally and to push players forward and to represent what Cornell is. And I think, Cornell for a couple of years was like a sleeping giant. And then they're all of a sudden they're perennial top 5, perennial top 10. Like they're a team you have to watch out for. They have a recruiting standard they set. Certain players they bring in have to be at a certain level. And, they've definitely pushed the envelope on that.
I mean, Rob's watched the team play this year, and I'm just amazed. They just keep throwing guys out in the field, and number of freshmen are getting time, and everyone who steps on the field is playing at that level. They're so deep, and they have done a fantastic job recruiting quality lacrosse players, but more importantly, quality young men.
It's something that the coaching staff from when I was there, until now, and Connor and Jordan haven't seen that and heard it, is more importantly than the results on the field, is that, the coaches tell your parents when they drop you off that they're going to turn, your son into a better young man and prepare him for life after lacrosse. And that's exactly what these two guys are doing. Obviously the results on the field have been amazing with Connor and Jordan there as the head coach and associate head coach. But more importantly, we're most proudly of the players when we meet them off the field and in New York City for an alumni dinner and events for, career events or whatever it is, just how impressive they are as young men. And that just speaks to volumes to how great a job they're doing up there. And it also can't go without mentioning Coach Howley in the weight room has been a consistent presence with the Cornell lacrosse team. And he's certainly right on board with Connor and Jordan as to how this program should be run.
How's your relationship with the Piatelli boys? You got any good stories for the podcast?
I don't have any good stories. I hope I have some more after this summer. Playing with John out there on the field, my story has been watching John for years and amazed of his game, and always as a feeder, looking at guys like him that I'd love to play with. And, I'm just excited that we were able to pick him up on the Redwoods, and I know he's going to have a great opportunity to play for us and do his thing. I'm not sure he was given a fair chance last year to show his skills. So we're excited to have him at training camp, and obviously the more Cornell guys, the better. So.
Well, I appreciate that. I remember we went to a Brown game a number of years ago. I think it was your senior year. Brian and John joined me, and obviously they were a big fan of yours, looking up to you as a player. And I remember maybe it was 3 years ago, you gave John a call, and he was shocked that you had called him and asked him to work your attack. Yeah. And he was so honored, and you put your arm around him, and been a sort of like a big brother to him. And I know he appreciates that very much. But it goes back to the whole alumni association, and you all put your egos aside too. Everybody puts their egos aside. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether you're a CJ Kirst, Rob Pannell, doesn't matter. You're all part of the association.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know Brian as well. John is great. And we certainly have more of a relationship. And, he was great when he worked that camp for me and came right in. He's great with kids. I mean, he's just a great person, John. You look at him, he's humble, he's quiet, he's so down to earth. Sometimes, I would have loved to play with him, but sometimes, we probably got to shake him a little bit because he's so just smooth, just even keeled the whole time. But it's been great to see Brian have some success this year as well, and really have an impact for the Big Red, building off of last year, but having more of a role this year. It's been awesome. So obviously the Piatelli boys have done Cornell well, and excited to get on the field with John.
Well, when you play with him this summer, like I'll call him all the time, like this window, will you shoot more? Shoot more. Stop being so unselfish. Shake him, shake him, shake him. But if he's feeding you all the time, you're going to be happy, right? So
I'll tell you what, absolutely.
But yeah, he's a humble kid. I don't know where he came from, but he's
me neither.
I know. So congratulations on making the USA team. I was fortunate enough to run into you down at the IMCLA convention. You were with Coach Stevens at the time, and he had asked you what your thoughts were on making the USA team or not. And you had a very good attitude. Your attitude was, if I make it, great. If I don't, I don't make it. You did everything you could, put everything on the field. You're 33 years old. You make the team. Were you surprised that you made the team?
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I thought I played well in the tryout. I was very relaxed, having been there before and having played for that coaching staff. And I guess I was just, I wasn't not surprised, but just, I guess a little bit, I was just happy. It was just genuine happiness. I wasn't relieved or in any way, because I had played on it twice before. And I really meant, if I made it, awesome. If I didn't, very excited for who did. I'm so lucky to have been on two teams before that. So I was just happy, and it just kind of, the way I am, immediately started thinking about this summer and what we need to do to win. But it was a great experience, and I'm the oldest guy on the team, which is a funny feeling after being one of the youngest guys the first two go around. So we got a lot of work to do though, and part of being on the team is now you got to win. So, because no one really cares if you don't win. No one wants to know about that USA team. So, it's I've just been putting in the work to try and make that happen in June and July.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Division I Women's Lacrosse Championship. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to give your team the ultimate assist on the lax field? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, get loud for every goal. 2, work in groups. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The Division I Women's Lacrosse Championship, May 26th and 28th at Wake Med Soccer Park in Cary, North Carolina. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/WLacrosse. Class dismissed.
Dedication, skills, focus, and the drive to play at the highest level. Massachusetts is committed to providing the coaching and curriculum that will allow boys and girls to learn and grow as individuals and as teammates. With an emphasis on skill development and academic excellence, their players have led the country in college recruiting for the past 10 years. With over 800 plus players moving on to play in college and over 130 plus high school All-Americans, Massachusetts has been able to set the nationwide standard unmatched in the sport of lacrosse. To learn more, log on to laxachusetts.com. That's laxachusetts.com.
All right, class, it's the NCAA Men's Lacrosse Championships. Welcome to Fandom 101. Want to hype up your squad from face-off to the final whistle? Here's your assignment. Lesson 1, get loud for every goal. 2, work together. And 3, attendance is encouraged, but passion is mandatory. The Men's Lacrosse Championships, May 27th and 29th at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Buy your tickets today at ncaa.com/mlacrosse. Class dismissed.
Youth lacrosse players, we have the summer day camp for you. The Interstate Boys Lacrosse Camp will be held Monday, June 26th through Thursday, June 29th, 9 a.m. to noon. They have 2 great locations for this camp in Rentham and at Springfield College. Interstate's camps are a great way for youth lacrosse players to improve their lacrosse skills, develop lacrosse IQ, and have fun all at the same time. The coaching staff is made up of current high school coaches and experienced college players who are passionate about teaching the game of lacrosse. Find more information on these summer camps at piotelelacrosse.com.
A lot of eyes on Team USA, that's for sure. And more every year, obviously, because there's more kids watching the game, more fans watching the game. Thanks to guys like you who have made the game so exciting over the years. You talk about what you need to do, thoughts on what you need to do to be successful this summer.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is coming together as a team, and it seems so cliche, I guess, but with Team USA, the chemistry side of things is really important because you're not with each other a whole lot. I think we have 3 or 4 days of training camp in June, and then we fly out to San Diego, and I think maybe have 2 days before we play Canada in the opening game. So it's really a chemistry side of things and getting to know each other off the field and maybe talking about playing and tendencies and trying to learn as much about each other as possible. This team has been interesting, and I've spoken to some of the coaches about it and some of the players who are on the 2018 team is we don't really have an identity yet, but we have a very mixed group of guys. And, to what you said, everyone, more eyes than ever on the USA team, and lacrosse is covered more than it's ever been. So everyone's going to have their opinions of who should be on the team and who shouldn't, outside of who's on the team. And listen, these are the guys that have made it, and it's our job to bring home the gold medal. So we're doing everything that we can. I know there have been meetings and group chats and stuff. It's understanding who we are, that identity, playing to it, and ultimately you got to show up for those few games where you really have to make sure you brought your A game.
So when you retire, will you retire with a USA jersey on or a Cornell jersey on?
That's a tough question, but I think maybe I gotta go with my big red. I think those are some of the best years of my life, and listen, everyone's involved in retirement. So
I mean, that's kind of leads into the question, like, do you think this might be the last season for you?
I haven't made a definite decision. I think I want to see how things play out with regards to this season with Team USA, with the PLL, see how my body feels. My girlfriend, I'm sure, would like to have a little bit more of me on the summer weekends. But it's funny. I talk to people, Kyle, and they ask me that question, and some of them are like, "Oh, you've had a good run, and go out on top if you can this summer," and others are like, why would you stop playing? Play as long as you can, because when you're done playing, you're not going to go back. So that's an internal battle that I have with myself, because I do think I could play at a high level, and part of me is like, why stop playing? And then part of me is maybe ready to move on with the next part of my life. But I'm not going to make any decisions until after the season's over.
Yeah, I think that's, I think I've heard that too, right? So people like ask me, because I don't cover a ton of pro now at this job, but my previous job was I was the pro guy for a long time. And you're one of the players that I've covered since you were a rookie, right? And then I looked at your graduation year and I went, 13? Oh my God. Like, it didn't make me think you were old. It made me think I was old. Just looking, I was like, oh my God, have I been covering lacrosse that long? And then you go back and you just think back and you're like, oh my God, I'm just still doing it. And I think it's similar, right? Like, you want to do it as long as you're good at it and as long as you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think, for us, we've said this on the podcast a million times. We're lifers, man. Like, this is like what we do. We love this. We love doing our other jobs. In addition, you know, basically our whole lives are lacrosse in a certain way, right? We share that with each other. And I think it's always when players retiring from pro and lacrosse is different than other sports, I think, because if you're really at the top of your game and you can keep playing on a pro roster and keep producing points, you do it. You know, a lot of other players do it for money, but that's not how it works in lacrosse. You're not playing for huge paychecks, right? Like you're playing because, you know, you want to win, you want championships, you want to, you know, have something that you share with your teammates, have memories. You make memories every time you're on the field now. And I think actually, you know, if we're leading into another question, that's what PLL has done a really good job of transitioning from the MLL is highlighting that and hopefully giving, you know, this season, I know the last couple of years, a lot of guys have retired, like the old guard, if you want to call them that. But, you know, there's still guys that are around that kind of made their career like you have.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think part of what makes it difficult too is the PLL. So, you know, it's a great point you made is finally, you know, a guy who was in it in the MLL and, you know, making $5,000 a year, you know, to now where the money is impactful and it's real and what they're doing as a league, as far as just growing it and getting eyeballs on it and making, you know, creating personalities and players, and people are more into professional lacrosse than they've ever been. So as someone who's dedicated so much time and energy to the sport and to help it grow, it's so tough to like leave it when it's really getting started, which makes it difficult for me because Paul and Mike have done such an amazing job at making us excited to play on the weekends, and the championships are meaningful and just creating this aura around the PLL that the MLL just didn't have. You know, if it was the MLL still, you know, I this, you know, probably the retirement question would maybe answered a little different. But, you know, the PLL certainly makes it more difficult because it is it's just that much more fun to be there on the weekends and to play. And, you know, the other point, not to talk about it too quickly, is that lacrosse is different than retiring from another sport. It's not so much about the money. It's you know, more to that. And if you can still compete, that's great. And also, you know, the time commitment is really the weekends. You know, people are like, oh, you play pro lacrosse. How does that work? I was like, well, you know, I train on my own during the week, you know, a lot. But when I play on the weekends, I travel Friday, play Saturday, and I'm home. So time commitment really isn't too crazy. And it's not, you know, it doesn't take that much out of, you know, your personal life other than just like the summer a little bit. But so you're not gaining a whole lot of time by stopping to play. So if you can continue to play, why not? It's kind of where I think, but we'll see what happens.
Did it take you very long to adjust to the new rules with the PLL in terms of the shot clock and the shorter game time?
I think the short game time was interesting. You know, the games, I remember in the bubble when we were playing, the games just went by so quick. The shot clock was the shot clock. I think the first, you know, game or two, the possessions felt quick. But you adjust and you make the adjustments. I think the game's great. The PLL, I think it's fast. I think it's great for TV. I thought they did a great job with the championship series as well with the 6-on-6. So yeah, the great thing about the PLL is they're always looking for new ways to improve and get better. And that's, you know, what more could you ask for in a league?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on the 6v6? Is there anything you would change, and what do you like and don't like about it?
I thought it was great. I think that should be played at younger levels, you know, for youth kids to get more touches. I was up at a field the other day and working with a kid, and like 12 girls came on for practice, and they're like, "Hey, this is our field. Like, usually we scrimmage on Saturdays. You guys mind moving off to the side?" And I literally watched a 6-on-6 full field 5th grade girls scrimmage, and I was just thinking to myself, like, I would have loved to go up to the coach and say, maybe we turn the goals on the side field, and you guys play a shorter field and get a lot more touches rather than a lot more running. And I think that would be great for youth sports. So I do think the 2-point line was a little close. and maybe a little longer shot clock, but I thought it was great, and I think they did a great job with it. And I think most importantly is people loved it and were excited about it.
I mean, I've had this argument on the podcast before. I think it takes away the ex-attackman, which is kind of what you play.
Yeah.
I mean, you can play in it, right? Like you can still have a role, but it really does eliminate the real need to have someone back there because you're not getting the ball back, right? Like, and you have to make a play, and your pass has to be good. So like, you're more of it actually favors more attackmen that play GLE, like that are sneakers, right? Like guys that come in and around. But I don't know. I'd be interested to see you play it. I would want to see how your style might change. Because I definitely think it has to. I mean, I've watched you play for like over 10 years. I know where you want to go and what you do. But yeah, how do you think you'd attack it?
Yeah, we played it with Team USA years ago, and I did go behind the goal. And I remember just trying to dodge and draw a double team and just feeding for step downs, guys in front of me or guys in the crease. So I would definitely try and attack it from behind the goal. I was curious, to see. I wanted to see more teams try and do that when I was watching, because I did watch a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I do think you can create offense, but it's really up to that guy beating his defender behind the goal to draw the slides. But if you could do that, I mean, then you have two guys down and you have, 4-on-3 across the top or whatever it is. So it should be a pass to a shot to a pretty decent look. I did feel like it was a little too much one-on-one at some points and just trying to dodge and score a goal. So we'll see. I would definitely try and go back there. And if it doesn't work, then maybe just go to the crease and hang out. But I don't know.
Oh, you can still get your 5-5 off. You can still get that question mark.
Yeah. I thought guys were getting good looks, when they did go behind. I thought they were getting decent looks. So we'll see.
One of the games this year, talking about question mark, one of the games this year, CJ Kirst came around the goal and did a question mark, and the announcer mentioned that you were the one that created the question mark. So you got a great shout out on the question mark, and nobody does it better than you.
Well, who did it before you though?
I don't know if I didn't create the question mark. That's for
I know
sure.
who did.
Well, they were giving you credit for it because you did it so well.
I just put the little stamp on it. I just put a little jump shot into it I learned the question mark from Mark Millen's offensive wizardry video when I was younger. I used to watch it all the time. He did a little different. He would get higher. He was so fast that he would get high and then bounce out and shoot on the run down the alley. And then I kind of just added I was like, well, if I can just create separation and take a jump shot, maybe I'll just do it that way. So I put my own little spin on it. But Mark Millen was the one that I learned the question mark from for sure.
Rob Moore invented the Hezzy lever pass. That's like one of the things that I would credit you.
I like it.
I think so. Because, one of the things was he didn't have trouble. I mean, you didn't have trouble beating guys behind, right? Like you would get through, but then what teams started to do is they would start to send the slide before he even broke GLE. So he would fade, but not in a fade off his back foot. He would fade and then kind of step into with his front shoulder a lever pass. So he just bang right there. And it was so accurate how you developed it because defensemen were running at you and you were like, yeah, right through. It's something I literally try to teach my kids all the time. They're not ready, right? Like it's a very high level move. Like it's an extremely high level move to learn and perfect. And I just remember watching you do it. I think you did it one game when you were playing with the Lizards, like 6 possessions in a row. And it was like 5 of them were goals. And I was just like, how do you stop this? I don't know how you stop it if you can get that off and there's someone open, right?
Yeah. The most important thing is you got to see the double team. And Rob did a great job. I mean, you got to watch a lot of film.
Yeah.
Watch Rob. But most important thing for an attackman, Rob, you can answer this question too, but you got to recognize when the slide's coming, double team's coming, and then you got to recognize where it's coming from.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the biggest things is always having your head up. And, as a feeder, my uncle who played and was a feeder and my dad who just knows sports, they always were like, head up, head up, head up. And so it's just a skill that I developed at a young age. And just a love for feeding, honestly. And that really was my dad who just was like, hey, listen, a goal, an assist counts just as much as a goal. And I from the time I started playing lacrosse, I played X attack and I just loved feeding. So yeah, listen, the other part is you got to have a guy inside that's going to catch and finish. And I've been so lucky to have, I had Ryan Hurley and Steve Mock at Cornell, and Matt Gibson on the Lizards for so many years. It was amazing. So I have had a ton of guys that made me look good a whole lot of times as well. Sometimes those lever passes weren't always on the money, so they would catch it and finish it. And so you guys know how to get open. They know how to get open too, which is part of it.
I'd like to get back to the World Games. The rules are much different, international play. How much does it take for the Americans to get accustomed to the international rules? I think what really pops out at me is the shot clock, no shot clock, running periods, different face-off rules and regulations. Will that take some time for the new American players to get accustomed to?
I think so, and that's part of the whole tryout process. I mean, we had 3 events this fall, and you always have to remind guys, listen, we don't need to rush into a shot and into a possession and take time. And I think the one thing this year, though, is they have implemented the stall warning, which is an advantage for us. In the years past. They haven't had that, so you really can't sit on the ball as much as you could in years past. And you have to play with a little bit of tempo. I think if you're just moving the ball around the perimeter for 2 minutes, the stall is going to go on, maybe even sooner. So it's balancing that now with balancing being patient, because historically, if you didn't score on your possession, you weren't seeing the ball for 4 or 5 minutes probably. And that is a stress that's for the entire team. Defensively, knowing that you have to defend for that long, and offensively knowing that you really have to be smart with your opportunities and transition smart and be aware there, and not just take any shot. This isn't a dodge down the alley and shoot type of offense. So but we don't know how quickly that stall is going to go on and how quickly it's not. That's we haven't really been at the games yet, so I think that's something we'll discover as we're there.
Yeah, I think have you ever seen a USA tryout?
No.
I saw one in 2018, and it is the most insane, because when you see teams play, there are players that, listen, for whatever reason, you have to take maybe a playoff, or like you're not sprinting at every ground ball because this guy's going to get it, right? Like your roles are already established. In a tryout with that much talent, everybody is going on 10. And it produced, for me watching it, one of the most incredible displays, especially on offense, that I've literally ever seen. It was at Sparks. They just built the new facility, and I was watching it, and I was just like, I wish people could see this, because it's a different level of, it's a level of lacrosse. The closest thing is probably that first season of the PLL, but as far as like tryout, like everybody is going for the same goal and they're battling each other. It is the most intense and high level lacrosse I've ever seen. Was it like that when you tried out this year?
Yeah, no, it is. And I think the other thing that we all speak about, and you talk about it with your PLL teams, because you're like, you're almost like, how can you be more like Team USA? Because guys who haven't been at a USA tryout that are on teams, will go to a USA tryout and be like, oh my God, like that was unbelievable. Because particularly on the offensive side of the ball, no one cares who scores. No one cares who gets the assist. It's like, you will make this team if you do your job. If that's drawing the double team and moving it, great. If that's being the second assist guy, catching it and swinging it to the backside, great. So it's amazing to see the best players in the world just, as you said, Jack, about leaving your ego, and leave their ego at the door. And they don't care if they score. They don't care if they get the assist. It's just like, you do the right thing, and that's what you do, and you do it, and no questions are asked. So that's what guys are doing all over the field. And then just the intensity, as Kyle said, and just the attention and the focus as to what is needed, what is the goal, what are we trying to accomplish here, is just that much more intense. So it's amazing, and it's probably part of why I wanted to go for another one and be part of that process. And this process, I think more than any, I enjoyed just being one of the older guys, and just trying to help out with the younger guys and give them some insight as to how this goes.
How many players are actually invited to try out? And then how many players are actually selected? I know you have some alternates as well.
I think the original tryout in the summer was, I want to say it was maybe 100 players, probably between 80 and 100. And then they took about 52 into a training team. And those were 3 weekends in the fall. We had 2 in Maryland and 1 in Florida. And those weekends were scrimmages. It was about the team, and the coaching staff said, everybody, this is the training team. And, everybody that's here is on the team, and we're just going to select the 23 guys to go with us in San Diego. And then there were scrimmages and whatnot to practice on the style of international lacrosse and what we want to do offensively and defensively. So, and then from the 52 guys, they cut it down to, I think there's maybe 23, and then there's alternates. So maybe 30 guys right now.
Yeah, there's, if you look at kind of the roster, it's interesting because there are like a lot of younger guys on the team. Like Brendan O'Neill's on the team. Ryan Tarafenko graduated in 2021 is on the team. But then there's Rob, there's Karen McCardle, class of 2014 from St. John's. You got Michael Earhart, who's Maryland 14. Like there are a lot of guys from this kind of pocket of right after 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. There's a ton of guys from that in there. But then the new guys are super interesting because they bring a totally different style. They're players that have been influenced by those players, right? And one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I interview a ton of players for all sorts of divisions, D2, D3, D1. And I always know, talking to them, I like to ask this question. I don't use it all the time in the articles, but I'm like, who did you watch growing up? Who did you want to be like? And I'm gonna name a name. So I interviewed Willie Greco, who is a attackman at Wingate Division II. And I didn't even have to ask who he watched because he plays like you. He's stocky. He's about your height, a little lighter, but he is very linear in all of his movements. He doesn't do a ton of flashy fakes. Like Rob doesn't care about fakes. That's what I like it. I do. I try to tell people not to care about fakes as much.
No fake sometimes is the best fake.
It is. It
right?
Totally is. And I was talking to Willie, and we were like kind of off record, and I was just like, your guy's Rob Pannell, huh? And he's like, how'd you know that? And I was like, hey man, I just watched you play. Like it's so funny because we were talking about how his dodging is very distinctive. And he just describes it. He goes, well, all I do is I run as hard as I can one way, and then I go the other way. And I'm like, that's incredible. But like, I feel like if I asked you that question when you're in college, you say the same thing, So I guess like my question, and just to tell that story real quick, is what do you make of your legacy? Because I think that you have one. And I think it's palpable even to guys that are still in college playing now.
I think it's really cool, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think that's probably the coolest thing for me is to hear that as like, oh, this, or for a kid to come up and say, I modeled my game after you growing up, or I tried to be like, your moves and dodge like you. I just think that's so cool, and you can certainly, sometimes you watch certain players and you could see it. By no means did I create that style of lacrosse, and I just took what I liked from certain players and tried to just create my own version of what an ex-attackman should be. And I was very lucky that I had Coach Tim Broney early in my years at Cornell, because he pushed me to be not just a feeder, not just a scorer, but he pushed me and he taught me, deception was always the word that we would use with dodging. And Coach Shaluka then pushed me even more. I mean, there'd be days where I would just be fighting with him because there would be 7 guys on defense, and I'd have 2 guys on me behind the goal, and there'd be 5 guys behind them and a goalie. And I was like, this is so ridiculous. Like, why are we doing this? I was like, I just want to play 6-on-6 offense. He's like, this deal with it, and just pushed me. And I appreciate that. But my legacy, I don't know. I hope it's that. I hope, one part of it is that ex-attackman, the prototypical ex-attackman. I love when I see it these days. You don't see it as much as you used to. The guy that I watched growing up was Connor Gill, and I thought he was so cool to watch from behind the goal. despite him being a little taller and leaner than me. But I just admired his feeding and his scoring, and I wanted to go to UVA, so he was my guy. But I don't know what my legacy is. I try not to think about it that much. I'm still playing, and I hope people look at me as a competitor. I love to compete. I love to win, and I hate losing. And on top of that, hopefully they can look at me as a guy who played X attack and played it the right way and was that true quarterback type of guy. And I hope that position doesn't go lost in the sport of lacrosse.
I mean, do you think that's happening? Do you think it's just becoming like? Why do you think that?
Just watch a lot of it. I think you see a lot of stuff from the wing and 2-man game, and I love watching Schellenberger play because he's that X attackman. CJ Kirst at Cornell, he's so fun to watch, and I love watching him as much as anybody just because every time he gets the ball, you never know what's going to happen. But he's on the wing, and it's a lot of 2-man stuff, and up top and across the top, and throw it to that opposite wing and attack there. And you don't really hear the excitement as like the one-on-one matchup, like this team's top defender and this X attackman, like the build up for those matchups where I feel like you used to, back in the day, always know who the top defenseman was covering the X attackman. That was the guy, and you just don't you don't see it as much anymore. There's a few guys out there still that embrace that X position, but I don't even watching high school lacrosse. There's doesn't go back there as much. Whereas if I was gonna coach and have a team, I'd be like, I need to make sure I have an X attackman.
Yeah, I love the X position. I think the offensives now are really run through the midfield more so than the attack. Why that is, I don't know. Cornell's offense is run through the midfield, and they create a lot of double teams. They like to get it to the backside, but very rarely do you see them driving that often or even feeding from X, like the John Zilbertis of the day or the Timmy Goldsteins at Cornell.
Yep.
And I love to attack from X and, creating a double or find the guy up top for a step down. But hopefully they don't lose the position, because I think it's a great position. I think it's an area on the field where you can attack like you can attack nowhere else. You can attack from both sides.
Yeah, I do think I always said this too when I was writing about MLL. If your team can't score from behind, you can't win a championship at the pro level. And I think that still holds true. Actually, I really do. But I think also I think the reason kids don't want to grow up playing X is the X guy gets beat up worse than any guy I'm dead serious. I have 6 attackmen on my team, and they're like, well, every game I'm like, why aren't you going to X? And they're like, they like kind of shrug away from the question. I was like, because you don't like getting smashed on? Is that why? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, then just move the ball. I need someone back there so we can back up the shot. You don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to do anything.
Just hold your stick up at the end line.
Just run to the end line and just do this. Okay. Don't worry about it. We'll switch you off. But I really think that's part of it. Yeah. I think, the biggest defenseman, the baddest defenseman guards X and throws wood, man. I mean, I at a young level, I think it makes you not want to play it. Yeah. I really do. Well, I'm not kidding.
You see guys diving to the end line now. I mean, that's how important the possession is.
Of course.
But yeah, you just want someone to stand on the end line over the stick.
I'm not gonna lie, I do. We have a couple sets where I'm just like, how about you just go stand on the end line?
It's a big responsibility. I mean, think about how frustrated you get when that exit attackman's not back there, or like a shot goes out and there's no one back there. Sometimes I don't move from behind there just because someone's got to back up that shot. But I mean, it's important. And when I was younger, I was that small guy. I was not the fastest or quickest guy. So when it comes to those big checks, I remember playing like JV lacrosse as a freshman and playing against these big defenders. And I hadn't matured yet, but just taught me how to move my feet more. And okay, I have to have better stick protection, and I got to get in, I got to get out, I got to change speeds, I got to change direction. So it just taught me how to play lacrosse and not hopefully get stripped and not get whacked as much. And then when I got stronger, faster, and bigger, and finally matured, I had that set of skills in place. So I think it's a great position to play, to learn the sport, really learn how to move and how to protect your stick and create space.
Yeah, and talk about backing up. The X guy probably does that better than any player on the field because he's back there a lot. But they do a great job, like yourself, anticipating the shot, knowing when the shot's going to go, whether it's going to go wide or not. And, as the quarterback back there, you have to watch everything and pay attention to everything because your responsibility is backing up the goal.
And it's the shooter's responsibility too. We're shooters.
Yeah,
we love shooting.
Get your shot on cage and make sure someone's backing up before you get the shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good shots. Yeah, absolutely.
Only good shots.
I got to ask you this question. Kyle and I were talking about it today, and I wanted your opinion on it. So a couple of weeks ago, Maryland was playing Ohio State, and Maryland ended up winning the game in overtime. But John Tillman, the head coach at Maryland, questioned Ohio State's players that he wasn't wearing the right color glove. They ended up getting possession of the ball. I thought it was a little ticky-tack. I thought, one, they checked the sticks before the game. They should check the gloves before the games, right? And maybe the kid, something happened to his other pair of gloves. So situation like that, you give the kid a warning, go put on a pair of gloves that match your uniforms. But I thought it was a little over the top. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, Coach Tillman is a Cornell alumni, so I'm going to.
You can't abstain. You have to give a take.
Give him a pass. No, I didn't even know that was a rule, to be honest.
Right.
So I wouldn't even think of it. Quite frankly, I think it's a dumb rule. I don't know why the glove. When I was in college, gloves didn't have to be the same color. We wore different colored gloves. I don't think they did. And I guess maybe they did.
It's same base color.
Same base color. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't. It's like a coach calling a stick check on a face-off guy.
He did that too, by the way. Earlier, he did it in February.
We got you, Rob.
Yeah, no, it's fine. He did, but this is the thing, and this is my take on it. And not to take away from your take, because I'm sure yours is probably better than mine. It's just Tillman. You know what I mean? If it's any other coach, everyone gets mad, and I didn't get mad at all.
Yeah, that's how he is. I mean, he's a student of the game, 24/7. He knows the rules. He's on top of it, and I mean, people are like, "Well, he just asked the refs about it." It's like, well, he probably had intention when he asked the refs.
Of course.
I don't know. I respect Coach Tillman. He's obviously had incredible success. He's an incredible coach. But
no question about it.
That's not my. I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't. I wouldn't do that. Yeah.
I don't question Tillman. I question the official. I think the official should have given the player a warning because you didn't even know it was a rule. Think the player knew that was a rule? The coach probably should know it was a rule, but he's not the equipment manager.
Yeah. No, agreed.
I mean, you can have there's injury dispensations, and that's what I think people were kind of doing technical arguments about. If you have a broken thumb, you can play with a different glove. Right. It's a safety thing.
Yeah.
Right? That's not what that was. That's kind of what I think people were trying to couch that in. But I mean, listen, he's on the rules committee. When that happened, I got a text the next day with a screenshot of the end of the rule book for 2023. And John Tillman's on the rules committee. And it's of course he knows that rule. And of course he's on the rules committee. He's Bill Belichick.
He is.
He is. This is his life. This is what he does. And he wins and he finds ways to win. And I was not even perturbed one iota about it. I really wasn't because I expect it. And if I'm coaching against him, which I never will, I would expect it. I really would. And I think that's fine. I
had a similar feeling, Kyle. I was right. I was kind of with you. When I saw it, I was like, oh, it's Coach Tillman. Yeah, of course. Why is anybody surprised? Or why is this should be a shock? I agree with you 100%.
Exactly. That's why he's in the position he's in.
Yeah.
So Rob, you get about 2 months away from the World Games. Will you change your training? Pick it up. How will you change if you do change from now until then?
I would definitely more on field, more speed and agility and conditioning. Try and lean out a little bit. I got pretty heavy this winter with my weight program, and I wasn't too happy with. I was getting strong, but I wasn't happy with my weight. So try and dial that in. And I'd say the most important thing for me right now is just making sure my body is right and listening to it. If I'm sore, need a day or even 2 days off, because injury is obviously the worst thing that could happen. So more maintenance at this point, but I'm trying to lose a couple pounds as well. So it'll definitely be more on field type stuff at this point.
Now, how much more has your diet changed, nutrition's from today, from when you played the first time for Team USA?
I'd say the decisions I'm just at a different point in my life, and I'm just making smarter decisions, from diet, but also, regarding, going out and socializing and alcohol and whatever. I was living in the city when I was 24 years old playing for Team USA the first time. I live out in Huntington, the suburbs, and live with my girlfriend, which is a very different life. And our idea of fun is a lot different than it was when I was in 2014. So I'd say those are just making smarter decisions that way and prioritizing recovery and health and whatnot.
All right. Well, Rob, that's going to do it for us. I really appreciate you coming on. It's been fun as always. I love talking to RP3. It's a good time. We got some nice rivalry going back a while. I love all the old MLL guys that are just like, they hated me so much, and now they're just like, oh, they can't take her, this old man. Just let him talk. Let him say his witticisms. It's fine.
I started rubbing off on him, Rob.
Yeah.
I like Kyle. You know what? We need more people in the sport that just say it like it is, or whatever they're feeling. Don't have to. Not trying to please everybody. And especially in today's world.
Absolutely. Yeah. And nobody covers the game better than Kyle. He covers high school, college, pro, and he does a great job.
Absolutely.
Wow. Appreciate you. So will
you be at the Brown game on Saturday?
No, I won't be. I won't. Was that at Brown?
Yes, it's at Brown.
Yeah. I won't be there. I might make it up for Princeton with Richie Moran plaque dedication.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, we'll see. Once June starts, really once May starts, it's crazy. So I try and enjoy a weekend or two while I can.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, I don't blame you.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. For Jack Piatelli, I'm Kyle Devitt. We'll see you next time.